Welcome to another session of Sutton Impact Family Style. This is Bill Sutton.
And Jason Sutton.
And we're excited to be back again. Lots of things to talk about today.
First, we're going to have a quick talk about our Patreon. In order to continue to keep this show going, we do need your help with Patreon. You go to patreon.com, find Sutton Impact Family Style, and we have a number of ways you can help us contribute. And first off, we'd like to thank some new Patreon members. We have a new cousin, Matthew Swan. Thank you very much. And we have two people in our circle of trust. We have Sharon Sutton and Kaylee Mullen. So, again, thank those people. And again, if you can help out in any way, go to Patreon. We really appreciate it. And now we get on to the show. So
awesome. So let's start with our, in this, I'm going to make it worthwhile today. So I want at least 10 new members based upon these stock tips I'm going to give you today.
Even better. Can't beat that.
All right. So, everybody knows I work for David Stern, and he's like the most smartest man in the room I've ever met. So today in the Sport Business Journal article, they asked David Stern what kind of tech he was investing in. And so he said I'm going to give you David Stern's quote. So here you go. I've made a number of investments, but those that have been in sports focus on new technology that enhances the fan experience. That's to say streaming with Fubo TV, virtual reality with LiveLike VR, wearable technology with Shot Tracker, artificial intelligence with StatMuse, unmanned cameras with Key Motion, a new approach with Sportcast Live, and most recently an app called Overtime, which focuses on high school sports, which I think is the next area that's going to be more in the public consciousness. So there you are. That's a man that is at the top of his game in everything he's ever done, and this is where he's investing his money. And if I were you and I had some extra dollars, that would be throwing them where David Stern throws his money. So that's our sport business moment right off the top.
And that you can't beat that. Like you said, stock tips.
Stock tips. So while I'm on sport business, I told you, Jason, I was really upset this morning when I'm watching SportsCenter AM, which is a thinly veiled TMZ for sports fans, I guess. And Serena Morales shows a video of a bunch of Rockets players laughing during the game.
When Anthony Roberson was missing a number of free throws.
And she said that's why they were laughing. She said but she identified them as Thunder players, and they were actually wearing red shirts with an R on them. And I have no idea. It was on the humongous screen platform behind them, and all of the other professionals that she works with agreed that it was embarrassing that the Thunder players were laughing at their own player, and it was just such a miss. I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe that if you're paid to do this job and you're watching the video, that you could be that wrong and be consistently that wrong, and then have other people, also paid professionals, agree with you. So I hate that show. Put this down. I hate SportsCenter AM. I hate everything about it. I hate how it makes fun of players by showing some negative highlights. I hate how it always is trying to sensationalize things. Content is one thing. Great content is another thing. Don't have content just to have content so you can be perceived as cool. Have content that's great talent, or don't have any content at all. And that's all I have to say about that. I'm like Forrest Gump, and that's what I have to say about that.
Well, it just seems like it's just a general lowering of the bar. Like, if you feel like if you write great content, it can be positive and people are going to consume it. It just takes a little bit more effort. But just pointing, and again, I don't know what she was talking about. It was clearly the Houston Rocket players, which is, almost scandalous. And that's enough of a TMZ story right there to be like, is this respectful of an NBA team? I'm sure you could run 10, 15 talking heads on there to talk about how disrespectful it is to laugh at another player during the course of a game. And who knows what the Rockets were even laughing about.
Yeah, we don't know if that's what they were laughing about. And I would prefer to believe they weren't laughing at the fact he missed free throws.
I would think, honestly, considering they've been in that situation, they probably weren't. The team had a nice comeback. They're about to go up 3-1 in the series. I'm sure somebody said something funny, or somebody in the stand said something funny, or something goofy happened, and they laughed. I'm sure athletes are fairly superstitious. I'm sure laughing at a guy missing free throws in a game is every NBA player's worst nightmare. Or not laughing, but missing those free throws. Yep. And I'm sure they'd probably want to avoid that if possible. And I've never really seen... I've seen players laugh at, a goofy blooper play. But I don't think I've ever seen, in all my time of watching basketball, people laugh at somebody missing free throws.
I don't think so either.
Maybe Shaq one time with a huge air ball, but Not in that situation. That situation seemed almost like one of those. It was uncomfortable to watch. It brought me back to watching Nick Anderson in the playoffs for the Magic. We were just watching somebody miss free throws, and it's awful. It's not fun to watch. You feel for him.
He didn't want to miss the free throw. It's painful.
It's painful. And I feel like the NBA players, of all people, know that situation more than anybody, and that's how they're going to be.
Well, now I will give some props to, let me think who had the game. ABC had the game. I'll give some props to a stat I saw during the fourth quarter where Russell Westbrook entered the game and the Thunder were ahead by 2 points, and it listed the plus minus for Russell Westbrook. When he's on the court, his team is plus 20. When he's off the court, his team is minus 18 in that particular game. And there's nothing that sums up the Oklahoma City Thunder more than that stat. And it's unfortunate because I love the Thunder.
Or the MVP race on that matter.
Yep.
And that sort of brings us right into the Russell Westbrook Oklahoma City Thunder reporter incident.
Yeah.
The reporter asked a question that I think, based on those stats, is a fair question. I'm not sure. I think any question is a fair question to ask for the most part. Mm-hmm. I don't know every answer he's going to get is going to be a scandalous answer, though. If you're asking Steven Adams, why are you so bad when Russell Westbrook's out of the game? There's not a lot of answers he can give that aren't either going to be throwing his coach or his team or his general manager under the bus. Right. And as we saw 2 nights ago, or twice now with Paul George, when he's opened up about, I should have taken that shot, not CJ Miles. Lance has to cool his head on that program. The second you say anything mentioning your teammate, every show in the world is all over you saying,
because that's going to sell.
He's yelling, he's screaming, and,
He doesn't like his teammates.
He doesn't like his teammates. He doesn't respect the coach. He doesn't respect the GM. So the reporter asked a question that was going to get an answer that would give him a story. And again, it's his right. He's a reporter. But and maybe Russ should have let Steven Adams give the answer. But as the star of the team, is clearly the alpha on that team. Mm-hmm. I loved what he did. He basically just told the reporter, we win as a team, we lose as a team. That's all there is to it. Next question.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, it got a little heated. And the reporter's like, I get to ask my question. You're not answering my question. And Russell's like, there's no question. We answered it. We win as a team. We lose as a team. Sit down. And it got a little contemptuous, a little.
But again, Jason, I think you have to be considerate of guys trying to interview somebody 15 to 20 minutes after a game like that.
Right.
I just don't think you can there's a lot of raw nerves exposed. And I think you got to be respectful.
And again, I feel like that particular question, you're looking for an answer.
Yeah.
And the answer,
you're not going to get it.
Right. Because you're looking for an answer that's going to give you.
Oh my God, look what this story you broke is. Russell Westbrook said his teammates suck when he doesn't play.
Or Steven Adams said the GM didn't get him enough help. Or the coach the coach wasn't doing a good job on the sideline. We need to call better plays. Almost anything you say, and it seems like maybe that's always been sports reporting, but more so than ever, it's sort of just like, I'm going to keep asking these questions until you slip up and say something that I can go run and put on Twitter, and it's like, you won't believe what so-and-so said.
Let your guard down. Let's see how many hits I'm going to get today. Yeah.
And even if we know the athlete was trying to say, something one way, the second he slips up and puts that quote, you get some kind of quote. It can be the top of your tweet, here's the quote, and then here's the link to my article, Russell Westbrook throws team under bus. Mm-hmm. It's Russell Westbrook. I want to see what he had to say.
Yeah.
And even if, the article basically is like, well, technically he didn't say that. That was my headline. It's
just bad. It's just, there's not the journalistic talent that there was. There's few people that I give credit for being a great sport journalist. Like Bob Lee is a great sport journalist. He tells a story. He gets the facts. He has interviews. He has in-depth reporting. And he tells a story. And he lets you form your own conclusion one way or the other. He doesn't say, isn't this reprehensible? He just says, here it is. You form the judgment of it. And that's what a good journalist should do.
And I think we've definitely gone way too far into the sources say, where, obviously we have the, journals can protect their source. But now if you need a story one day, you simply say, sources say. Sources say Westbrook is unhappy with his coach. Now there's an article about it. They're talking about it on SportsCenter AM. They're talking about it on their every show. And it's all based on what? Sources say?
Sources say.
Which leads me to my thoughts on the rest of the playoffs. And obviously Cleveland swept a very dysfunctional Indiana team. Yep. And it's hard to imagine anybody beating them in the East.
No. Boston's not shown what they were going to show.
No.
Washington has actually surprised me.
Washington's frisky. John Wall and Bradley
frisky.
Beal have been outstanding.
Yeah. So, I'm not saying they're going to beat the Cavs, though.
No.
They might make it to the Eastern Finals, but they're not going to beat the Cavs.
And I've been incredibly impressed with Milwaukee, but I feel like they're that super young team that's just not quite ready to go anywhere.
I've decided that since Oklahoma City is going to be eliminated, I think that series is 2-2, that I'm going to now watch the Bucks series. So I like the deer on the shirt.
Atapatunko or the Greek Freak.
I like the Greek Freak, and I like the uniform. I like the big deer on the shirt.
Fear the deer?
Fear the deer.
No, the Greek Freak has been incredible. Thon Maker, no matter how old he is, has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because they always talk about going small in the NBA. And it looks like Milwaukee has found a way to go small while being big. Because every guy on that team is insanely long.
Yeah.
Like they all have wingspan. I mean, they might be 6'6", but they've got a 7'4" wingspan.
It's a very interesting team. They're fun to watch, and I wish them the best.
And I wish Jabari Parker was healthy.
Yeah.
Give him that one, because he's one of their building blocks.
No question.
And it would be nice to see. In the West, Golden State, even without Kevin Durant, just looks unstoppable.
But then again, San Antonio is just consistent. They're not flashy. They're just good.
They're consistent, and you're going to get, obviously, 100% consistency from Kawhi Leonard every single night.
Like, it took everything for the Grizzlies to win that game the other night.
Right.
But they did.
It
makes it interesting.
But
I think the first round of the playoffs this year have been more interesting than the NBA first rounds in a long time.
But when you look at San Antonio, Ginobili and Tony Parker can't bring it every night.
No.
LaMarcus Aldridge, when they signed him a couple years ago, I thought that was going to just be the perfect bridge. I thought he was going to step right into that Tim Duncan role, and they were just going to roll. He's been incredibly disappointing in my eyes. Because I don't know who's Kawhi in a tough series. I don't know who his second guy is every night.
No.
Because I feel like it's Patty Mills, and no disrespect to Patty Mills, but I don't think you can win a series if Patty Mills is the second best player on the series for your team.
No. We'll see what they do. They're well coached. He's got a great strategy. We'll see.
And it looks like what gives them trouble is size, and technically Golden State doesn't really have size.
No.
And and none of the teams left have size outside of, Milwaukee's sort of hybrid size.
So you had a comment too on Beverly, didn't you?
I did. And I respect what he did. Well, on some level. A fan we don't know exactly what the fan said, but according to Beverly, he was being well over the line. And Patrick Beverly was fined $25,000, which he paid. And he also said, what I said back was inappropriate, and that's why I'm going to pay the fine. I'm not going to dispute it. I'm not going to try I'm going to pay my fine. I deserve what I got. But he pointed out again, this line with the fans.
It's not a license to abuse people.
It's not a license to abuse people. And I think if you follow, psychologists from around the country, they've sort of said that, it's becoming a growing problem because people have had the anonymity of a keyboard for so long. And they've been able to say, not that maybe they've been saying these things for, I've been in sports arenas, they've said a lot of horrible things. But more and more people just feel this.
Yeah, and you get the same anonymity because you're sitting with 18,000 people.
18,000 people. And again, I think, as Patrick, he said, attack my game, attack our team, attack our city. My missed free throw, my turnover, whatever you want to say about basketball. But once you get really, really personal,
there's no place for that.
There's no place for that. And like you were talking about, reporters asking questions after 15 minutes when they're exhausted and they're still either pumped up or disappointed from the game. This is in game. Mm-hmm. And these guys are at their absolute peak. Their adrenaline's flowing. They're pumped. They're ready to go. And someone says something.
Yeah.
And again,
they're in the heat of battle.
And while the keyboard, sort of taught people this anonymity to be rude, it also gives people access to more information on players than ever. So it gives you a chance. Like you can be sitting, if you want to decide, I want to mess with Patrick Beverly. You pick up your phone, you Google Patrick Beverly. You know his mom's name, his kids' names, things that have happened in his life. Like it gives you this automatic ammunition to just really bring stuff that you should not be bringing up. I mean, at the end of the day, sports are sports. And it's great that people are as passionate about sports as they are, and they're as enthusiastic, and that they go and they cheer and they root. And, I know at different points in my life I've claimed that I I bleed blue and or black and gold during a Steeler game. But there has to be some sort of a line.
Yes, there does.
And it can't. And the line, I know it's a tough line to draw and a tough line to do because we also don't want to end up with a James Dolan situation where anybody he doesn't like, he just throws out of the game.
Yeah.
Because that's the can of worms you don't want to open, where all of a sudden, fan behavior is, or like the NFL celebration penalty, where, people are all of a sudden having to decide what is and what isn't over the line. Like, I know that people are always going to say, well, you know it when you hear it, which is a very nice thing to say. Not nice thing to say. It's a very easy thing to say, I should say. It's very easy to be like, well, you know what's offensive when you hear it, what's over the line. But I don't think you really, and again, maybe that is all there is to it, because it's, you can't, it's hard to regulate what is and what isn't.
And you can't just, it's just too hard to step in and be a mediator all the time and do these different things. You don't have to do that. You shouldn't have to do it.
No.
It's just wrong.
And especially the people that can afford the seats that are yelling these things courtside. You would typically think they've been given probably a decent education if they can afford those seats at some long line, so they should know. You could argue they should know better. Not that that's necessarily where that comes from, but it is that whole, whatever it is, we can say whatever we want.
Yeah. And so we need to comment on Rondo trying to trip somebody, or is it just Rondo being Rondo?
Well, I guess karmically he broke his thumb and he's out for the rest of the playoffs.
So he was just trying to do what he could do?
I guess he's Rondo being Rondo. I think it sort of brings up, you look at Grayson Allen at Duke and all of his tripping and pulling. And, it sort of goes back to that if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying mentality that I think permeates through sports. I was taught that, I remember going to basketball camps you sent me to when I was young. And, they were teaching me ways to, pull on a jersey from behind when you're going for a rebound.
Yep.
Where you can put your foot, where you all of a sudden, you're boxing out and you step on their foot. And these are things they're teaching me at, 10, 12 years old.
I know, it's sad.
And,
it's sad.
In the second anybody questions it, they're like, that's just how the game is played. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. And it sort of becomes that whole, again, now we have a line. It's like, is this okay if I do this? Is it,
Yeah, we want somebody to say that some of this stuff is okay. Like, remember, it was 2 weeks ago, Yadier Molina, the ball hits the dirt and sticks to his chest protector.
Sticks.
And he can't find the ball, but it's sticking there like it's covered with a foreign substance.
Yeah.
And he says, I have no idea why it's stuck there like that.
Exactly. No idea.
Then you could walk around and it's still sticking there.
Over a century of baseball, no one's ever seen that happen before.
No.
And again, like you said, it bounced off the dirt and literally stuck to his chest protector. Like it was made out of Velcro and it was a tennis ball. And it just... And again...
I'm sure at some point in time we could do a whole episode or a whole week of episodes just on nothing but...
Sports ethics.
Sportsmanship, a code of honor,
right?
Doing the right thing. We talk about it, but it's less and less. You see it driving down the street. You see people running stoplights, running stop signs now all the time.
Right.
And that's putting your life at risk.
And just about every coach basically tells you, just play the way I'm telling you to play. If they start calling it, then we'll stop doing it. But it's always go do it, and we'll see what happens.
Yep.
And the more you do it, eventually they'll just stop calling it.
Well, we get the NFL draft this week.
And more players are testing positive for diluted samples. Just this week, Foster and Peppers, 2 protected first rounders. Foster, who's had just a rough...
Yes, he has.
It's all self-inflicted wounds on his part.
It's going to cost him millions of dollars.
Because he was a consensus best linebacker. Outside of Myles Garrett, he was considered the best linebacker in the draft.
Yeah. He was a top 10 pick for sure.
Top 10 for sure. He was talking the top 5.
Top 5, top 6.
Because everybody says, once you get past, the no-brainer Myles Garrett pick, you've got 10 or 15 guys, and he just slowly slid his way down.
Yep.
He had some off-the-field stuff.
Yeah.
He had that weird incident with the medical staff that I don't quite know what happened yet, but apparently he got really mad and yelled at them and left. And now a diluted sample. And like everybody, including Julius Peppers, he got sick. He had to drink a lot of water.
Oh, you mean...
you
mean Julius Peppers?
Jabril Peppers. Jabril Peppers. Sorry, I don't mean... No offense to Julius Peppers. You were incredible in college. But yeah, that's the... and they showed a tweet, or they showed something from some executive. It was like, do you think we're stupid, Jabril? That was the quote.
You need the Bitmoji that says what happened was. And just put it out there.
Be like, we had traveled a lot and I was really sick, so, I had to drink a lot of fluids. That's why my sample was diluted. And again, it happens every year. Baseball, football, basketball. Not basketball. It seems to have avoided it somehow.
Well, I saw a tweet today that I did not quite believe. Bill Polian, we all know who Bill Polian is.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Polian says that no player, not no player, N-O, meaning none, no player who ever tested positive for pot at the combine has ever made it in the NFL.
Well, we know, I can think of two just off the top of my head right away.
Yeah.
Randy Moss, Warren Sapp.
Yep.
And I think I'm missing 100.
Yeah. So my first thing is, wow, maybe we need a new test.
Yeah.
Because obviously you're not catching them.
No.
If that's your theory. So I don't know. It's just, we got a lot of changes coming on in society with marijuana and everything else. We see where it goes. It's 3 years from now, we'll be laughing about this.
Right.
We'll be laughing at, we said we didn't draft somebody because they tested positive for marijuana.
It's legal in half the state. It's slowly becoming legal in states where they have professional sports teams.
Yeah, just get tested in a state where it's legal.
Well, I know it's still against the bylaws of the sport,
Yes,
which, makes it illegal. But
then you have some legal action. Maybe, hey, I was doing something legal in my state.
Eventually, yeah. Eventually, because, if you could take, cortisone shots and all these other opioids for pain legally, eventually that's going to come to pass anyway. So that's,
Agreed.
But the other one, all the PEDs we've had lately, too.
Yeah.
That we've always had since, I think since PEDs were invented, they've been trying to stop PEDs. And every time they come up with a new test, they come up with a new way to beat the test.
Yeah. Almost simultaneously.
Almost simultaneously. So it becomes one of those, like, you've got to there's got to be some change in the system, because again, you're just chasing your tail. You find out, you decide what the punishment is. Because again, you look at something like baseball. They have an incredibly severe punishment.
Yeah.
And personally, we just lost our best player on the Pirates, Sterling Marte.
So he got 80 games, and he doesn't get paid.
He doesn't get paid.
And so not only does it hurt the team, it hurts the player.
Hurts the player. Hurts him moving forward in his game. And again, despite all that, despite knowing what the potential is, next time it's a season and then a lifetime ban, I think, is a 3-strike rule.
Yeah.
Knowing everything, he still did it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way it is, across the board.
I don't know if he's one that I would legitimately don't know if he really did it on purpose or not. He's one you convinced me that he didn't know. Without going into more detail than that, I don't want to throw him under the bus, but I could understand where he might not have known.
It would be nice. It brings me back to a million conversations I had when I used to bartend in Massachusetts, and everybody would explain how Manny and Poppy and the other players that did those things for the Red Sox didn't know either.
Yeah, it just seems like if you're playing in the DR,
right,
you got access to some things and people tell you to do some things, and you want to go off the island, you want to get in the major leagues, you can do what they say to do.
And again, I do get yelled at this from certain people, but if I have something wrong with me, I go to the doctor, he gives me a pill, I just take the pill.
You don't ask.
I don't ask, I don't pay attention. I'm like, well, he's the professional.
He's the expert.
He wrote me the script. I'm going to take it.
He's the
now,
expert.
granted, I'm not getting tested for anything, so it doesn't really matter. But in their defense, if their doctor was like, you're having these elbow issues, take this. Yeah. I'm like, well, the doctor, he went to medical school. He knows what he's doing. What am I going to do? I'm not going to spend, 8 hours Googling and checking against the Major League Baseball policy. I'm just going to take me.
What you do.
And again, on the other side of it, I know in my fields that I've had moderate amount of success at, here and there in different things. If there was a pill or an injection I could take that would launch me, if that was the difference between me, sort of scraping by in the minor leagues of what I do for a living, to being a major league player in what I do, I don't think I would hesitate. If that existed in my field, I think I would take it.
I think probably 80 to 90% of the people in the world, if not more, would take that same trade.
Because again, if
you're willing to trade your soul to the devil, you should take a pill.
You should take a pill.
Much easier. No long-term repercussions. Only in this lifetime.
Only in this lifetime.
Yep. Give it up that next lifetime. That's where I might have to draw the line. Not knowing if there is another lifetime, but not wanting to roll the dice.
Right. But again, that's why when I look at it, I'm like, if I was pretty good, and that was going to give me really good and take me to that next level, I'm probably doing it.
Sure.
And it would take a pretty strong medical argument the other way for me. Like, again, you said, like, unless it affected me, if it was like, well, you do it for this 1 year, it puts you where you need to be, get your name out there, you're good, you go.
Yeah.
Maybe you have some hip displacement when you're older.
Whatever.
I'll be like, you know what? I'll make that trade.
Get a new hip. You have plenty of money.
I'll get a new hip. I got lots of money. Eventually, with all the biomechanics, I'll probably want one anyway because I'll be able to jump across the lawn.
What else is on our tap for today?
What you just came back from Kansas City, but you told everybody about your food from last week, where they were going to go.
Yeah, it was good. Stroud's was good. Stroud's lived up to the reputation of a great chicken place. I didn't realize how good the cinnamon rolls were. Threw me off. It was really good. Went to the Char Bar for another meal. Char Bar was pretty good. I didn't go to Joe's this time, and I kind of regret that I chose something else over Joe's. But Stroud's I've always wanted to go to. The fried chicken was amazing. Definitely worth going for. I'm trying to remember where my next trip is. My next trip is going to be to...
Well, it's always good when there's more restaurants you can possibly eat at in a given city.
Love it. Love it.
Because I know we've lived certain places, and it's always like, I know when I went back to visit, and somebody came to visit me, and it's like, where do you go here? And I'm like, I don't know.
I think next week I'll be closer to my Phoenix trip, and I'll talk about some Phoenix spots. I get some really good spots I like in Phoenix. Some a little off the beaten path I'll be able to tell our listeners about. I go to Phoenix, I go to Minneapolis, and I love Minneapolis. It's just not one of my favorite eating cities.
No Juicy Lucy's?
Well, Juicy Lucy's good, but I mean, it just seems like there's not a go-to. There's a bunch of little things. There's not like a go-to, not a must-have.
Right.
Like once I've had a Juicy Lucy, I've had it. I don't need to go back. But it's one of those cities that, I don't know, but the Timberwolves have hired a chef, David Fema, and he's going to oversee all their concessions. So instead of having the concessions company do it, he's going to do it. And he's got a restaurant. He told me he's going to cook for me. It's going to be the best Italian food I've ever had in Minneapolis. And I told him jokingly, I said, that wouldn't be tough. But I'm looking forward to going and seeing what he does. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the impact that he has on concessions at Target Center.
Like, as soon as you said that, I started thinking, I'm like, if I knew I was going to get a great meal at the stadium, not a good hot dog or some nachos that I enjoy, but I was going to go get a great meal, then all of a sudden that becomes much more of an event.
It does. Because now you plan on it. You go earlier.
Right, I go earlier. I'm excited. I'm going to eat,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, I almost always get something when I go to a stadium, but again, it's,
Like Citi Field for me, Petco Park, R2 and AT&T are three places I can go, and I know I'm going to get a great food experience.
At the stadium.
At the stadium. I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
PNC Park, there's some things, but not. I've been there long enough that it's not definitely what I want. When I go to Pittsburgh, I don't really want ballpark food. I want somewhere else.
Right.
But when I go to San Diego, great ballpark food. Citi Field, awesome food. Just, they have Shake Shack. I love Shake Shack.
Shake Shack.
And I'm happy to get Shake Shack at Citi Field in my seat, delivered to my seat. One of my favorite things.
Delivered to your seat.
Delivered to my seat.
That's not bad. But yeah, chef in charge of the concession. Because, I mean, the concessions in some places are just awful.
Yeah, and I mean, this guy's a guy with a great reputation as a restaurateur. And he's going to approve the menus, and he's going to do different things. We're actually going to make a TV personality out of him. Dinner with Dave, and put up on the Jumbotron, and he'll talk about where you should eat in the building tonight. Do stuff like that. I think it'll be really good. We're going to see how we can do.
Yeah, because I think that is, because again, when you think about back to the beginning of the show, some of the stuff David Stern is talking about investing in.
Yeah.
Like, the VR experience. I've never actually I don't own my own VR outside of a weird little Google phone thing. But I've got to use somebody's actual VR, and it's incredibly cool when you take a tour of somewhere.
Yeah.
And clearly at some point, that's going to be the future of viewing sports. You're going to have to find that's going to be the best seat in the house in a weird way, assuming health issues don't come up.
Last week in USA Today, Facebook had their annual conference, Mark Zuckerberg. And Mark Zuckerberg talks about exactly what I've been talking about, that lightweight glasses, easy to use, or maybe even contact lenses are going to be the AR and VR reality. And it's going to change. You can walk up to a wall with somebody to start playing chess on a wall, just plain wall, because you can be able to do things like that.
Right. And again, if you're in a stadium, I can go to the 50-yard line. All of a sudden, I'm standing next to the coach.
Yep.
Then I'm in the quarterback's helmet. Maybe I'm in the middle linebacker's helmet. I'm never going to get an experience like that. When no matter how great my seat is, I can never get that. But again, like you said, right now, most of the units there's a lot of wires, and they're bulky.
And you put your phone on your head.
And you put your phone on your head, and you need a headphone jack and everything else. Yeah. But I mean, it's not far off.
Well, I am convinced now.
But you can never have VR food.
No.
So
and I wouldn't want VR food. No. I want real food. I am convinced that Zuckerberg is the Steve Jobs of the decade.
Over Elon Musk?
Yeah. I'm convinced because Musk is kind of private. Talks about things, but Zuckerberg now has got the Jobs thing, does the conference, does the unveil, does the reveal. Here's what we're going to do. Bang, bang, bang. And people are looking at him. And he's got that. Musk is, I love Musk. But he's not putting on a show and doing this stuff. Zuckerberg is Jobs. Musk might have more substance right now, but I don't know. He's got almost 2 billion followers on Facebook. He'll be doing something right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Musk is a little bit more future.
Yep.
Like he's talking about, SpaceX.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think in my lifetime I'm probably going to see, affordable space travel for people. I never know, but I mean, I feel like that's a fairly long way off.
We're going to have the affordable Tesla this year.
We're going to have the affordable Tesla, which is fantastic. I love what he's doing for the car industry.
Yeah.
But he's also talking a lot about, bioengineering, where eventually we become, one with our machines. And again, I know that's probably inevitable. We'll have, superior...
I just think he's a little out of the everyman thing that Zuckerberg...
Where Zuckerberg is like...
Everybody has Facebook. Not everybody has something that Musk made. So that's kind of where he's playing right now. And I like where Zuckerberg's talking because I can see it. Facebook, Dan Reed, a good friend of mine that worked with me at the NBA, is the sports guy at Facebook. And I'm going to try and see him when I'm out in the Bay Area in July. And so that'll be a good show for us. We can talk about what Facebook talks about, what they're going to do with sports.
And again, with Zuckerberg, I mean, VR is something that everyone understands what VR is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a good portion of the people have at least, and again, like I said, whether it's, just with your cell phone and the little clicking device, people have got at least a taste of it.
Yeah.
Where some of the stuff that you said, which puts them a little more like Jobs, because it's the stuff you can have.
How old is the movie Disclosure now? 20 years?
I don't know. It feels like it's 100 when you watch it.
But they gave us a tip to what VR and everything looked like then. I've never seen anything as cool as that now. You're walking through, tipping off things and doing things. I like that. That's always been my definition of what VR would be.
And it very well might be.
Yeah.
Because again, if you can just go to your cloud and you're just walking through a virtual, sorting through, then oh, there's what that is. I'm going to put this over here now. I mean, that would be incredible.
It would be incredible.
And again, for sports, concert events, VR's got just...
It's got a big upside. So we'll see where it all goes.
Because again, you can sit and watch the movie of your home, movie premiere. Yeah. You're not watching it at the theater anymore. You're watching it.
No. You watch it on your own terms.
Yeah. Which is exciting, but also, I guess, for that industry, also very scary.
Well, I want to tease next week.
Okay.
I've been working with Jason Stark from ESPN.com on some baseball speed-up stuff that we've been talking about. And he had some real interesting research. And I'm going to get Jason's permission and be able to talk about that next week. I think it'd be interesting for people to hear because it was really contrary to what I thought. And I thought that was interesting about who, thinks the speed-up rules are essential. So it was kind of cool. So we'll talk about that next week.
Definitely. Because again, as we pointed out last week, one of the things soccer definitely has going for it is you pretty much know your time commitment with soccer.
You got flow.
You got flow, no breaks. It's 45 minutes plus, overtime, which is, 2 to 3 minutes generally. Halftime, another 45 minutes to 48 minutes, continuous flow.
Yep.
Perfect. Now again, I have decided that at some point when I have a little more, when I want to give soccer another try on TV. I know it's on all the time.
TV or in person?
In person, I would love to give it a try. But I feel like, part of the TV, football I'll watch live. I'll watch replays of games I watched on Sunday on the NFL Network when they condense the game down to just the plays in an hour. That's how much I enjoy watching football.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like even on TV, if I'm watching the Premier League or Messi or one of these great players, I want to give a full game and see if I can,
So I walked in the office today and my graduate assistant, Zach, asked me if I had watched, Barcelona and Real Madrid played yesterday. And I had to say, No.
No.
And he said, he was going on and on and on and on and on and on. And I said, well, Zach, how was it? I said, let me guess what the score was. I said, first of all, did somebody win? He said, yes. I go, oh, in that case, it was either 1-0, 2-1, or God forbid 3-2. And he just looked at me and says it was 2-1. But it was how they got the 2-1. I go, I don't even know how they got the 2-1. I knew it would be that score. And so if that's come across to you soccer aficionados as pompous, just remember, I never played the game, as Howard Cosell says. And so I don't have the love and affection for it that many of you do. What I do have is a respect for the economic model and the marketing model of soccer, which I think is probably second to none. So,
well, I know when I go visit my sports sites, whether it's Bleacher Report, ESPN, or any of those, like, instead of it just being a tab at the top that you can kind of ignore, the stories are right there on the front page now.
They are.
Like, I remember, I didn't click on the Barcelona-Madrid article. I didn't even pay attention to the score. Like, even when you were like, what was the score? When you were doing your hypothetical, I was like, I know I saw it. I'm like, I have no idea what it was. Yeah. But, it was right there. It was one of the first stories.
Well, actually, the whole story was, I told Zach I probably would bet my house, my retirement plan, and my car that the score was 1-0, 2-1, or 3-2.
Which is true.
Yes, unfortunately.
And I think that gives us, I think we went a little over than we normally do today. But
that's a bonus. Now go sign up and be our Patreons.
Remember, it's patreon.com, Sutton Family Impact. We have a bunch of different ways you can help us. For starters, we're definitely going to shout you out on the show. And tune in next week.
Thanks. See you next week, or hear you next week. Take care.